How are you, everyone? I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you for our social studies lesson class 7, whereby we are going to discuss about the physical environment. And under the physical environment, we are going to discuss about the ocean currents of Africa. But before I just do that, I feel it is wiser to start by reminding you on what you are supposed to do in order to assist in curbing the spread of this deadly virus that is corona. That kindly stay at home. And if you are forced by circumstances to get out of your home, then always put on your mask. Something else is that avoid shaking people's hands, maintain social distance. If you feel like coughing or sneezing, use your toilet paper, put it somewhere here, cough or sneeze, and dispose it immediately to the rightful place. If you don't have a toilet paper, then always fold your hand like this. You can cough or sneeze there. Avoid rubbing, touching your eyes, your nose, your mouth using your hands, because the hands do touch different surfaces, and you are told that this virus settles on different surfaces. Above all, let us continue praying to God, because I believe that through prayers, God is going to see us through in this hard time. Now, I would like you to note that we have two types of ocean currents. We have what we call cold currents and warm currents. Now, in Africa, Africa is washed by the two currents. This is the warm currents and the cold currents. The cold currents comprise of cold Canary current, and we have cold Benguela, which is also known as Walvis Bay current. Now, these are the only two cold currents in Africa. Now, class, we say that cold currents, these are currents that flow from the poles. This is the North Pole and the South Pole. When you look at the two cold currents I've mentioned, that is cold Canary current and the cold Benguela or Walvis Bay current, they are coming from the poles, moving or flowing towards the equator. So we say that cold currents, these are currents that flow from the poles, moving or flowing towards the equator. And I've said that Africa is washed by two cold currents. This is a cold Canary current from the north, and then we have a cold Benguela current or Walvis Bay current from the south. If you want to get the formula of getting the cold currents, the formula is here. We say Kokabewa. Kokabewa, Ko standing for cold, Ka standing for Canary, Bay standing for Benguela or Walvis Bay. So the formula is Kokabewa. Now, allow me to talk about warm currents. We say warm currents, these are ocean currents that have either reached at the equator or they are moving from the equator towards the poles. When we look at Africa, you realize that Africa is washed, or it has this warm current. This is a warm equatorial Guinea current. When you look at this ocean current, has reached at the equator. Look at another warm current. This is a warm Mozambique or Agulhas current. It is coming from equator moving towards the pole. Look at warm Somali current. Warm Somali current, it is at the equator and leaving the equator towards the pole. So we are always saying that warm currents, these are currents that have either reached at the equator or moving from the equator towards the poles. And when I talk about the poles, I'm talking about the North Pole or South Pole. If you want to get the formula of the warm currents that are washed in Africa, we have the formula being Wamo Aso. Wamo Aso means warm current, Mo standing for Mozambique or Agulhas, and then we have a Somali current. So this is the formula of getting the warm currents that are washed in Africa. Now allow me to briefly talk about this unique cold current known as Benguela or Walvis Bay current. Now, Benguela or Walvis Bay current has some effect to the adjacent land. And I'm talking about the adjacent land here, that is this country called Namibia. It brings some effect to the coast of Namibia. One, this is a cold current, and therefore it brings cooling effect to the adjacent land, that is to the coast of Namibia. It also brings what we call mist and foggy conditions at the coast of Namibia here. It brings mist and mist and foggy effect to the coast of Namibia. Called Benguela current or Walvis Bay current is also responsible of causing Namib Desert, which is found in Namibia. So if you ask about the effects of Benguela current, which is also known as Walvis Bay current, you talk about one, it brings cooling effect to the coast of Namibia. Two, it causes Namib Desert. Three, it brings foggy and mist conditions at the coast of Namibia. My dear pupils, we will also like to talk about the winds across Africa, the winds that blow across Africa, and we have westerlies winds, we have southwest trade winds, we have westerlies winds, we have southeast trade winds, we have Harmattan winds, and we have northeast trade winds. These are winds that flow or the flow or the blow across Africa. Now, I would like you to understand that we name winds according to where winds come from. When you look at winds like these ones have indicated, we call them westerlies because they come from the west. Look at this wind. It is known as southwest trade winds, and indeed, according to the compass direction, we realize that this side is southwest. Then we have southeast trade winds coming from the southeast. Then we have the northeast trade winds coming from the northeast. Now, allow me to talk about these winds known as westerlies winds. The westerlies winds, they blow from Atlantic Ocean towards the tips of Africa. And these winds are responsible of causing rainfall to the Mediterranean region. The Mediterranean region is this region down here and down and up there. So these are the Mediterranean region, and the westerlies winds do bring a lot of rainfall to the Mediterranean region. I would like you also to understand that these two winds, they are known as onshore winds. Onshore winds, these are winds that blow from a water body to a landmass. Normally these winds do carry a lot of moisture, that is water vapor, and therefore they bring a lot of rainfall to the adjacent land. That is onshore winds. We have offshore winds. Offshore winds, these are winds that blow from a landmass to a water body or from a landmass to another land. So these winds do not cause rainfall because they do not carry moisture with them. So that is about westerlies winds. We have southwest trade winds. This is also an example of an onshore winds. And I've said onshore winds, these are winds that blow from a water body to a landmass. Now, southwest trade winds bring a lot of rainfall to the equatorial region there, equatorial climate. And you see, in equatorial climate, rainfall is throughout the year. So this rainfall in the equatorial climate is caused by southwest trade winds. Now, allow me to talk about another wind known as southeast trade winds. And as I said, these winds blow from the southeast of Africa. These winds are responsible of causing long rains in East Africa. The Eastern Africa region receives a long rainfall because of the southeast trade winds. Now we also have another wind known as northeast trade winds. These are the wind that blow from the northeast direction of the compass. And this wind is responsible of causing short rains to the East African region. Now, I want you to appreciate the fact that Somalia has the longest coastline, and whereas it is dry. This is because of the nature of the coastline of Somalia. Somalia has a straight coastline or a regular coastline that sometimes when the winds are blowing, instead of blowing inside the land, it is forced to blow that is horizontally or parallel to the coast of Somalia. And this is a simple reason why Somalia is near a large water body and we expect it to receive a lot of rainfall, but it is dry because of the nature of coastline. My dear pupils, allow me now to talk about these winds known as Harmattan winds. Harmattan winds are hot and dry winds. And this is an example of what you call offshore winds. They are winds that blow from a landmass to a landmass. It does not carry moisture with them. The Harmattan winds, they are responsible of causing Sahara Desert because these winds are very dry. So in other words, we are trying to say that if a certain place is faced by dry winds, then automatically that place will also be dry, as an example of this Sahara region, which is faced by Harmattan winds, which are offshore winds, and therefore bringing dry conditions to the Sahara Desert. My dear pupils, I want you to understand that winds affect climate of an area. It is one of the factors that affects climate of an area. And with that, those are the winds that blow across Africa. My dear pupils, again, I would like us to discuss about major plateaus in Africa. Major plateaus in Africa, and maybe before I do that, let us define the word a plateau. A plateau is a raised fairly flat land. A raised fairly flat land. That is what we refer to as a plateau. Now, Africa is covered by very many plateaus. In fact, we say that most parts of Africa is covered by plateaus. We have different plateaus. We have Ahaga Plateau. Ahaga Plateau is found in Algeria, sorry. Ahaga Plateau is found in Algeria. We have Futa Jalon Plateau, which is found in Guinea. We have Tibesti Plateau, which is found in Chad. We have Jos Plateau. Jos Plateau is found in Nigeria. We have Bai Plateau, which is found in Angola. We have Nyika Plateau, which is found in Kenya. And in fact, Nyika Plateau, the word Nyika means dry. Nyika Plateau in Kenya is the largest relief region in Kenya, Nyika Plateau. Then we have Teiga Plateau and Jebel Mara Plateau. These two plateaus are found in Sudan. So these are the major plateaus in Africa. Now I would like you to note this, that if a river happens to flow across a plateau, then it's likely to create a natural feature known as a waterfall. And that's why when we look at most rivers in Africa, they cross plateaus. And that's why many rivers in Africa are navigable because of these waterfalls. So if you ask about whether it is factual to say that Africa is, most parts of Africa is covered by plateaus. Now, my pupils, we would also like to talk about Africa's basins. Africa's basins, and maybe let me start by defining what a basin is. A basin is a large, low-lying land bound by plateaus or mountain ranges. A plateau is a large, low-lying land that is bound with plateaus and mountain ranges. Now, when you talk about a range simply means a chain or progressive mountains or progressive hills. We call them ranges. Now, these are the basins, the major basins in Africa. The major basins in Africa, we have El Jof Basin. It is on river Niger, El Jof Basin. Then we have Chad Basin, which is bound by Lake Chad. Then we have the Nile Basin on River Nile. This is River Nile. And then we have Lake Victoria Basin that is bound around Lake Victoria. We have Congo Basin that surrounds River Congo. We have Makadikali Basin, or in other books they talk of Makarikari. It is very okay. Makarikari or Magadgadi, it is very okay. Then we have Orange Basin that surrounds River Orange. Then we have Zambezi Basin here on River Zambezi. So these are basins, and you realize that these basins do attract high population, or very many people are attracted to settle around the basins because of adequate or reliable rainfall for farming. So these are major basins of Africa, and I have a song to that effect. Main basins in Africa, Chad, Orange, Zambezi, Congo, Nile, Lake Victoria, Makadikali edge of These are the basins, main basins in Africa. So class, thank you very much for having been with me throughout the lesson. I would like to advise that you can keep on replaying this video as many times as possible so that you can get acquainted with what we have just discussed. Goodbye.